So I'm Christy Mann. I'm the clinical director at Tidewater Eye Centers. We are a multifaceted ophthalmology group in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. We have 9 physicians in 3 locations. Of the 9 physicians, we have one optometrist and 8 ophthalmologists. Including in those 8 ophthalmologists, we have a retinal specialist on staff, a glaucoma specialist, a corneal specialist, a glaucoma specialist, and an oculoplastic specialist. So we have a lot of ideas on how we thought the EMR system would work for our group of doctors. And of course, with 9 physicians, we had 9 different ideas on the way they wanted things to work. So it created some issues when we first decided to go towards MDoffice, and the gear is that everybody was going to use one template, and they were just going to have to figure out how to make it work for them. So we went through the training phase, and the day before we went live, we decided that one template wouldn't work for our retinal specialist compared to our ophthalmologist. So we broke it out, and we had 2 templates. One was the retinal template, and one was the ophthalmology template, and our optometrist ended up using that. And for a while, we just kind of were struggling with how do we customize what's going to work with each physician, because everybody wanted their own ideas implemented, but the more that we tried to get them to streamline, the more we ended up with different ideas on where we wanted to take things. And one of the key things with MDoffice that we found is the customization that you can create inside your templates is huge. So some of our doctors didn't want to see what the glaucoma specialist wanted compared to what the oculoplastics wanted. And so what we ended up doing is creating a lot of mini templates inside the template. So even though they have all the same information, if they wanted to ignore that area, they could ignore that area. However, still being able to see that information if they ended up seeing a patient that wasn't necessarily their patient or being referred by somebody within the group, they could still see what that other doctor said about an area of the eye that they don't necessarily focus on. So our goal was to create a template that served the purpose of all doctors, as well as being able to make it user-friendly for the staff. So from a technician standpoint, to the scribe standpoint, to the doctor standpoint, we wanted it to easily flow between everybody, no matter which doctor was working with which scribe, which was working with which technician. So the goal was, let's make this as user-friendly as possible, although still being able to customize everything that everybody wanted inside the templates. And so one of the key things with MDoffice is the use of mini templates allows everybody to get what they want without everybody else having to see it. So with a click of a button, I can pull in all of my oculoplastic lid findings that nobody else needs to see unless they want to see it. Or with our glaucoma guy, who's very specific when it comes down to his visual fields and his OCTs and HRTs, his mini templates allow him to easily interpret all the fields and have all the findings there rather than having to go and find an order and pull it up. Same thing with our retinal doctor. She does have her own template because so much was geared towards the fundus area that some of our general guys just didn't look at the way she did, but we're still able to see her descriptions, her findings, and all of that stuff, and being able to make sure that we're seeing exactly what she's seeing. So I think that was key for us with having 9 different ideas on how they wanted things to work, was huge. And I think for us, because we were so good on paper, it was a really huge transition for us to go to an EMR system that wasn't tailored specifically to every individual doctor's needs. So they have found that adding things when they want something added in, I can add it in, and immediately when the next chart opens, it's already there. They don't have to wait, for days or weeks or months for it to be added in. It can easily just be accommodated from morning to afternoon clinic, and being able to utilize the system the way it was designed, which would be to customize exactly what kind of patients we're seeing. Because with 3 different locations, we are seeing kind of 3 different areas of patients that some are geared more towards geriatrics, some are geared more towards the younger crowd. So we needed to be able to incorporate everything in there without slowing everything down. So we actually started with MDoffice from the PM side in January of 2010. And we ran with the PM side for about a year and 4 or 5 months. We switched to the EMR side in May of 2011. We were actually in the process of moving our main location, so we transitioned 2 of our locations to EMR at one time, and then about 4 months later we transitioned our larger office. And so before we got started in in May. In January, we started building the templates. We started going through what we wanted to implement. And the trainers with MDoffice were great. They kind of walked us through, okay, here's kind of your blank slate. Here's what you can do with it. And the thing that we found is that there's not always one way of doing something. Just because it works well with one practice doesn't mean that's the end all be all of how it can be done. And so we actually went through and created all kinds of different ideas. We ran them through the doctors before we actually got started. So when we did our implementation, we were kind of ready to go with what we thought was a great system until we actually went live. And that's when we kind of realized that, okay, in every scenario, everything looks good on paper, but until you're live, we didn't realize that some of the ways that we built the templates wasn't a good flow for our clinic. And so the trainers, the day of our implementation, were there working us through, okay, this doesn't really work for your flow, let's move it up this way, let's make it easier from a technician standpoint. And they kind of walked us through. We had trainers that were with the technicians, we had trainers with the scribes and the doctors when they were seeing the patients. So from both sides, we were able to get good support when it came down to implementation. We reduced our schedules quite a bit the first couple of weeks just to kind of help out to make sure our patients weren't waiting extended periods of time. We kind of made it fun for our patients. We gave them snacks and water. We decorated the office with balloons. I mean, we wanted them to know that this was not going to be easy for us, and we appreciated their patience with making this kind of an easier transition for us. And some of the patients understood because some of their other physicians had gone EMR as well. So it was really a good time that we got the patients involved too, because some of those patients could tell us, okay, well, my doctor did it this way, or, at the tail end, okay, can you give me a printout of what I want, things like that. From a technician standpoint, the technicians actually caught on a lot quicker than our doctors and scribes did, because our workup just transitioned from paper to EMR. We just had to figure out where to click and move. For our doctors and scribes prior to EMR, our doctors dictated everything. And so it was very difficult for them to realize that they had to tell their scribe, this is a finding and it's in this part of the eye. So it was a real struggle for them initially to remember that they had to kind of go back to almost freshly being out of school of telling people, okay, this is where I found this finding. And as we worked through, the way that MDoffice is laid out with breaking out part of the slit lamp, it tells you the lids and the lashes and the lens and the cornea. It really actually gave it a better educational tool for our scribes who, even though they've heard the word, they didn't necessarily associate that word with this part of the eye. So they did a great job of being able to structure it. So not only were you seeing patients and effectively treating your patients, you were also training your staff without even realizing that that's what was going on. So from that standpoint, we really found that MDoffice did a great job of breaking out as an educational tool, even if it wasn't meant to go that route. Customization, it was key for us, because with 9 physicians, 3 locations, multiple, technicians and scribes all wanting to have a say on how they wanted the system to work, was key for us. We've had technicians come from other ophthalmology practices, other EMR systems, and by far they say it's the most user-friendly, easiest to learn on, totally getting the whole picture of being able to customize it to our current clinical needs. And every day, because things are changing, new measures with meaningful use, new measures with PQRS, we can kind of tailor that right in our templates without really having to make huge changes to the clinical flow. And for 9 physicians in our practice, that's key. When we're seeing upwards of 120 patients a session, it's what we needed. So prior to EMR, we were on paper. We have 3 locations, and the way that our system worked is that we were able to identify, for the most part, where charts may be located. So we had charts in all 3 locations, depending on which office was considered the patient's home office. So our charts did travel if a patient ended up going from our Virginia Beach location to our Portsmouth location. And so when the charts traveled, occasionally things got misfiled, lost in the transition, and now with EMR, there is none of that. There's no delay in waiting for the transcription to finish so that we could figure out what the findings was from the doctor the day before. It's already there. We don't have to worry about, did somebody pull the correct chart? Did somebody misfile a chart. Oh my gosh, we've lost something in the transition from the paper chart. We've lost photos, we've lost testing. That's all there. In one click of a button, you can see everything. If the patient was seen in our Portsmouth office in the morning time, all of that information is readily available for the doctor that's seeing them that afternoon in a totally different location. So it's been huge for our practice of not having to worry about where the charts need to go, who's responsible for getting them, do we have all the information in that chart that's going to be needed for clinic that day.